Pop quiz. What's a wrestling promo used for? You have a few seconds to type an answer in the comments. Okay, done. A wrestling promo the majority of the time is used to either A, further a storyline, or B, develop a character. Sometimes we get lucky and a promo will do both in one. In the world of wrestling, it's important to know a character's motivations. Why should I be invested in this feud? What has changed with this character since the last time they were in a major program? These are simple questions, but they're necessary in order to prevent things from growing stale. If a character is just cutting the same promo week after week, then we're really not going anywhere and we really don't have a reason to get invested. Because if it's the same story being told every week with the same outcome, then why am I investing my time in something that I already know the outcome to? Which brings me to the topic of this video. MJF. Now, I'm not gonna lie, up until this point, the character of MJF has really only done one thing, and that's be a complete fucking asshole. And to his credit, he does it extremely well. He might be the very best in the business when it comes down to being an asshole. And this current feud that he's in with CM Punk has catapulted him to another level. If you haven't seen that video, check it out. So in other words, MJF came into AEW as this huge villain since day one, and it didn't matter if we didn't know who he was, we knew right off the bat that this was the bad guy, the douchebag that you love to hate, but you also had to admit that he was talented as all hell. And for nearly 3 years, that's all MJF really was. This guy with an inflated ego who came seemingly out of nowhere, but he can back up all the talking he does. That was all we really knew about MJF until this past Wednesday, when AEW answered an important question. Why is MJF the way that he is? Frankly, this is a question that didn't need any answering, because at the end of the day, MJF is just a bad guy in wrestling, otherwise known as a heel. A heel doesn't need this complex backstory in order for the audience to understand where they're coming from, because it's their job to get booed. Heels aren't here to gain sympathy, which is why what AEW did on Wednesday came completely out of nowhere, but it worked. I'm sure the majority of you watching this video have seen the promo by now, but if you haven't, here's the quick rundown. MJF mentioned the photo of when he met CM Punk when he was young. He mentioned what Punk said the week prior, that this was one of the best days of MJF's life, but to Punk, it was just Friday. MJF mentioned his love for professional wrestling and how CM Punk was his hero, but the real gut punch came where MJF mentioned finally making the football team and finally feeling like he would make friends, only to be bullied and laughed at by his other football teammates for his Jewish heritage. And he's saying all of this with tears in his eyes. MJF says the day he met CM Punk, everything changed for him. He decided to be like his hero, to be outspoken, to stand up for himself. But January 2014 happened, the month that CM Punk decided to leave professional wrestling. MJF said that CM Punk decided to quit when he needed him the most. So a depressed MJF decided to give up on his dreams and went off to college. And it wasn't until on a random day he was scrolling on Instagram and he saw a picture of CM Punk and Bryan Danielson shaking hands, which managed to piss him off so bad because he was still livid at Punk at that time that he decided to leave college and follow his dreams of becoming a professional wrestler. Because as MJF said, he would be doing it for the kid being bullied at school just as he was at one point, but that he wouldn't give up on them like CM Punk gave up on him. And at this point, the crowd is fully behind MJF, the biggest heel in the company, who just cut the biggest babyface promo. And that's when CM Punk came down to the ring looking shocked from what he just heard and asked MJF if this is all true, to which MJF said it's true, and he leaves the ring. A masterpiece of a promo. And here's why. Instead of just continuing with the classic good guy versus bad guy dynamic that was working well, AEW decided to humanize MJF. We finally found out what made MJF this way, so hateful, so resentful. And it was none other than CM Punk. And this changes the entire dynamic of the feud. Is MJF really the bad guy here? Is CM Punk really the good guy here? Is MJF right in feeling that CM Punk abandoned him when he was being bullied at school? Is CM Punk wrong for walking away from wrestling when it was no longer making him happy and actually making him feel literally sick? These are storytelling dynamics that aren't just simply black and white. They're gray, they're somewhere in the middle. And it asks the viewer a very simple question, but one that makes you think. Whose side are you on? And if that question is making you think in a feud involving MJF, then you know the story being told is damn good. Because as mentioned at the start of this video, MJF was the biggest bad guy, the biggest douchebag in all of AEW. but we never really knew why. And after that promo he gave with tears in his eyes, we finally know where he's coming from. In the closing moments of this promo, MJF said that he would not quit in this dog collar match, because if he were to quit, he would be no better than CM Punk. And this all comes back to the night that CM Punk returned to professional wrestling in August 2021. At the first dance, CM Punk said that if at any point the personal decisions or choices he made in his personal life made you feel disappointed, that he understands. But he followed that up by saying, if we understand that he wasn't going to get better staying in the place that got him sick in the first place. Little did we know, CM Punk included, that MJF would be one of the people hit hardest by this statement. CM Punk said he understands if we were disappointed in his decisions as long as we understand where he was coming from. So does CM Punk understand where MJF is coming from? And an even more important question, was MJF being genuine?